welcome everybody here to the second Easton High School Hall of Fame ceremony. We have a couple luminaries here. Commercial Hall, the athletic director for Easton High School. Bob Burris is also came back again this year. He was former athletic director and longtime coach in football and track. I don't know if Rick Ryder's here. He was going to come. We have. Oh, is he? What's his name? Oh, Bill Kessler? Yeah, okay. I haven't met Bill, but I emailed him. He's county athletic director. And then we have three people that came back, I believe, from last year's class: Wally Knox, Jen France, and Brett Hastings. And of course, the even brighter luminaries are the people that are going to get inducted today. Chris Blue, Nicole Foster Lewis, Andre Gibson, Dave Hill, Richard Milborn. Richard is not here today, but one of the presenters will cover Richard as well. Buck Miller, Gerald Robinson, and Lee Lodeson. Now, the procedure for this event is going to be, we'll start off with the first presenter, which would be Matt Blue. He'll come up and talk about Chris. I think he's found some good things to say about him. And then Chris will come up, tell us about whatever he wants to talk about concerning Easton High athletics, his memories, and all that stuff. When he's done, Chris, you will grab this tray, which does not have your name on it, because the tray with your name on it is on your table. And you'll come over here, hold the tray, something like this, and we'll take your picture. Then you'll walk down, the next person in line, the next presenter, will, once you know the speaker's done, you come over here and wait here. Once they go down the steps, and you come up the steps and start your introduction. It'll go a little smoother that way, I think. And then at the end, we can get family pictures. This is a nice backdrop, so you can take all the pictures you want then. It's just, it gets real confusing if we have kind of like chatter over here and a picture being taken when somebody else has already started speaking. So that's the format. Before we go any further, I'd like to say a couple things about Dury Hayes. As you know, Dury passed away earlier this year and was inducted last year. I called Dury, I think in May, well, I talked to him a few times, but in May of 2019 to let him know that he'd been selected. Like I called almost everybody. If I didn't call him, then somebody else had requested they'll make that call. So we didn't leave in the dark. So I called Dury and I told him he had been selected, and it was just like dead silence. He was really having a hard time coming to terms with the fact that he was selected for this thing. But we got through that, and he was surprised and very honored to have been selected in that first class. In March of this year, I was tracking down some more information concerning Hall of Fame nominees, and I sent Dury an email and was waiting for a response concerning a couple of his former players. Then one day, he replied with a short message that said he was sick, very, very sick. And he probably could not be able to respond to me in the future. So when I heard that news that he passed, my initial reaction almost was, I'm really glad we got him in last year. And I know Dury, he mentioned that to me before. The one time I did talk to him after he knew he had problems. And he wanted to thank everybody here that had any part in getting him inducted. Dury played Little League Baseball in Oxford and Pony League in Easton and high school baseball here. Everybody that knew him knows he was a big baseball fan. And even if you didn't really know Dury, if you knew something about baseball, you could talk to him for a long time. He was well known in the area not only from his days as a softball coach at Easton and Chesapeake College, and I think he did some senior league coaching as well, but also from coaching men's softball in the Tidewater League for years. And he had tremendous success in each of those roles. Dury will be missed, but his impact on the local baseball and softball community and his players in particular will be remembered for years to come. Our Hall of Fame and the upcoming website will help keep his legacy alive along with all the other members. I'll talk to you more about the website in a second. We have a program today, didn't have that last year, very well done. It was printed and 90% designed by laser letters. On the front, of course, it's just why you're here. Inside cover is last year's class on the left. Right inside is all of the inductees, along with who's presenting them. Oh, I took this picture too for high school. It's nice, isn't it? And on the back are we had a golf tournament, and we had three big sponsors: Shore United Bank, Rocky and Kim Ainsworth, and Hill Hospitality. And then we had listed the whole sponsors and other people that made donations. It was also nice to have. I think we had 16 teams this year, and it ended up being a good day. I will probably try and, well, I know I'm going to try and continue the golf tournament for as long as possible, but from having done another one in the years past for 10 years, people do get tired of seeing you around, that April, May time. But we did raise about $4,000 after expenses for the tournament and for this ceremony. So that is why we're going to be able to do a website this year. We have some residual money left over. Now, for next year's class, voting will be around late May, early June. It will be done by the Hall of Fame members only. So the nominations will be collected ahead of time, cleaned up, maybe researched a little bit more, and then turned over to them for their review. And they'll be responsible for getting their votes back to whoever was selected at that time. We'll accept nominations until May 1st, let's say. And so if you know somebody that you think deserves consideration, please contact me. It is helpful to have as much information as possible concerning each nominee. If this isn't available, then please at least include their graduating class coach or coaches and contact information if you have it. Because in some cases, when we didn't have enough information, but it did have corroboration that it was really worth a person that's really worth considering, then I would make a phone call to that person and say, hey, I heard you were good. How good were you? And put it in writing and send it to them. And I've gotten a lot of good support that way, because although I will admit I kept things, not everything, but I kept some nice things that I had in a scrapbook. I know some other people did that as well, but the story I'm getting is my mother always kept it. So yes. Whether it was your mother or you, it doesn't matter as long as we get the information. And we still have people left on the nomination list. This is not something that it's a race in order to get in 100 people. And there's no goal for any number of people. It's just a matter of 1 year, it could be higher. The next year, it may not be. It could have a team. It may not have a team. It may have a coach, and the next year maybe not have one. So we have several qualified candidates, but I know darn well there are people that are not on that list that are equally as deserving. Now, the website, it'll be operational later this year. I work with them to as much as I can. Well, I can tell them what I want. I can't tell them exactly how it should look. But the website will or may contain articles, pictures, and a summary of the highlights by year. So for each year, going back, as long as it's worth going back for, I will review the articles, get the team stats as far as one loss record primarily, maybe, and in a summary for that year, list maybe somebody that was particularly outstanding in one area, or just something unusually good. Just a brief summary so that you can, as you look at the website, go through and look at that information. I'm also planning on having the pictures from here and last year in videos, and I want to mention that Mark Kaufman did a video for us last year. He's here again, and I've got him down here somewhere, but now that I see him. And Mark is doing this gratis. So what happened last year, he did the video. It was a big one because it was longer than this one's going to be. And I made a copy and sent it to everybody that was inducted last year. So we'll have pictures and videos loaded. We'll have pictures and bios of the members. So everybody in here that's getting inducted, you won't have to go to that yearly summary or that yearly page. You can go to your name and you will see everything you want to give me in there. As long as is legitimate and pertains to Keystone High School Athletic. We'll also have a school, at some point, have a school history of both Easton and Moton, how they got started, what building they were in, where they went to after that, and so forth. And then I'm thinking of maybe even a human interest type section that could include special memories, games, events, state championship teams, the return of football to Easton, undefeated teams. And one that I think is really pretty interesting, and especially today in this group, we've got Gerald Robinson, who has, if anybody has a family history, well, that doesn't apply to us here today necessarily, but it is interesting. If anybody had a family history that equaled his, I would be shocked. But anyway, just between Gerald, Craig, and Frank, and did your sister Easton?
Yes.
Okay. They all, from what I understand, we already know Frank, had all had a good career. But when you look at, if you're kind of not a student of this, but you kind of hear about somebody that was really good, and then his parents were good, and before that, his grandparents were good. That's what it is with Gerald's family. On a somewhat, I'm not sure, but because I don't know what the Blues situation is, but I do know that Ben was good, Matt and Chris both were. So you've got other brother, father-son relationships that may have a special little meaning or interest that be worth putting in on the website. That's it. So, Matt, you're up. Are there any questions or comments before we get into this?
I'd just like to give Gary a round of applause real quick. He's been the man behind everything that you see here tonight. He has made phone calls, he's made contact, he's gotten pictures and everything. So I think before we get started, we should really thank Gary for being here tonight.
Yeah, just to add on to what Chris was saying, I mean, I know just personally speaking with Chris, how much this means to him. You know, it's been long overdue since somebody has taken control and set this up, because the amount of athletes that have been around Easton are, you know, too much to count. And, you know, you guys deserve to be represented, and, you know, kind of your stories being shared to those that are around. So cheers to you guys, and, you know, congratulations for all the other recipients that are here tonight. So what I would like to do is take a little trip down memory lane. Mr. Hall, where are you at? Right here. Okay. November 14th, 1993. Let's see, Warriors Advanced to Semis by William Hall. When asked, you know, when you're trying to figure about how good somebody is, you don't really want to ask about, you know, their parents. You know, they're going to tell you, oh, he's real good. Or ask the person that's done it, yeah, I'm the best that's ever. You know, sometimes you can get the best feedback from somebody that you don't know, or someone that you're playing against. I found this article, and this kind of stuck out to me. So, November 14th, 1993, Warriors advanced to semis. Perhaps the biggest worry Smithsburg head football coach Carol Reed had heading into Saturday's Class 1A state quarterfinal was how his Leopards were going to stop Easton quarterback Chris Blue. He's just a fantastic athlete, said Reed of Blue Thursday during a phone conversation previewing the game. If Blue wasn't Smithsburg's biggest worry prior to the game, he soon became its biggest concern during it yesterday afternoon. The senior quarterback delivered a fantastic all-around effort, including a 7-for-11 passing performance that netted 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, as third seed Easton posted a 35-15 victory over Smithsburg. He is an amazing football player, said Reed of Blue, who also rushed for 50 yards and a TD and 1 interception. We couldn't contain him. Every time we got him in a hole, he was able to improvise and scramble out of every situation. He is a great athlete. We just couldn't stop him. So that is the words from another head coach speaking about Chris. And another thing that stuck out to me, you know, looking through his games, this was a typical game for Chris. Throwing for 100 to 200 yards, rushing for 50 to 100, and also coming up with some sort of interception, maybe a pick six or something along the lines. I mean, that was 2 years in a row from a junior moving into a senior year. So just to touch on a few of his accolades that he earned as a football player. First team All-North Bayside as a junior quarterback. First team All-North Bayside and Player of the Year as a senior. First team All-State as a senior. First team All-Mason-Dixon team as a junior. And first team All-Mason-Dixon team as a senior, which was players from the Eastern Shore of Maryland and the entire state of Delaware. He also was selected to represent the state of Maryland in the Chesapeake Classic, which was formerly known as the Big 33. Basically, the best players of Maryland going to play against the best players in Pennsylvania. As a starting quarterback, Chris's team compiled a 20-4 record through his junior and senior year. I don't know what the records are, but that could go down as most wins by a quarterback in a 2-year span there. He led his team to two straight advanced to back-to-back Final Four appearances in the state playoffs. I also know that Chris could have went Division I as a football player there. All right, so that's just football. So he did not play one sport, he played two, played baseball as well. For there, he was first team All-North Bayside as a junior, first team All-North Bayside, and Player of the Year as a senior. He was first team All-State as a senior. He was selected to represent the state of Maryland in the Sun Belt Classic, which was played in Oklahoma. Selected to play in the Crown All-Star Game at Camden Yards. Chris was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles out of high school. From there, he committed to play at University of Maryland, where he became a 4-year starter, where he will kind of joke with me and say, you know, every year, man, they would get these new fresh kids and bring them in every single year just to take my spot. There he was, still starting and beating them out every single year. Another thing, he was the MVP of the Bayside Senior All-Star Game. And Mr. Wally Knox, you might remember this, 1994. What were you guys? Baseball.
Undefeated. Lost 2 games and state champions.
State champs. State champs. 1994. Brad, I think you were involved in that too, right?
That's correct.
1994 state champs. So, at one point in time, Chris, you were the best player on the best team in the state of Maryland. Cheers to you, man. So, I was doing some other research. 2% of people in the United States are able to play a Division I athlete or at a Division I sport at the NCAA. 2%. I don't know what the percentage is of one person being able to play 2 Division I sports at the Division I level. I don't know what that percentage is. I'm sure it's less than 1%. But Chris, man, you were a hell of an athlete. One of the things that I'm most proud about Chris is his willingness to give back to the game. He has been following and coaching Brett, his son, from the time that he was, I don't know, ever since he was 2 on up to now. He follows Claire, his daughter, around everywhere with lacrosse. I don't know if he knows much about that, so he can't help too much there. Oddly enough, you know, he was a big football guy, but he started a travel soccer team that Brett was on when he was like, what, 10, 11? I don't know, 10. But that was the core of the team that won this most recent North Bayside championship, or for the North Carolina Bulldogs. That Brett was a key starter, a key player for that team. You know, as a kid, when I was growing up, I idolized you, man. You were my hero. You know, it was so cool to be able to go and be bat boy for the Maryland Terps out there with future MLB players. It was just such a privilege for me to be able to experience that. And you were also able to give back to me and teach me. You know, one funny story that kind of sticks out in my mind. Chris and I were just in the backyard, and he's teaching me how to field a ground ball. And he rolls it to me a couple times, and I do it wrong. He says it to me again, and he just kind of stops and like busts out laughing. And I'm like, what? And like his key thing, he was like, dude, ducks don't play baseball. I guess like when he was rolling me the ball, I was fielding like this and real unathletic and stuff. But he was patient with me and taught me the correct fundamentals that I still coach and learn and teach students today. I actually still use that term on others about ducks don't really play baseball. But Chris, you deserve this. You're going to go down as one of the best athletes to ever come through Easton. Congratulations, man.
Thank you, Matt. Would rather have anybody else do it? So I don't really have a long and drawn out speech or anything, but I do want to thank my parents. I guess my dad recognized when I was young that I had some ability, and he carried me, all over. This means a lot to me, to play for Easton. It's, sorry, I'm a little emotional. My wife and daughter just got here too, so thank you. One of my favorite coaches of all time, Mr. Wally, he always got us guys to play for him. And he was, out of all the coaching and everything that I ever went through at any level, Wally, and I'm not just saying it, he was my best and favorite coach I ever had. So thank you. And the group of guys that I came up with, the Brad Hastings and the Donald Wars and things of that nature, we had a good core of guys and were able to accomplish state champions in soccer and baseball. We all played together from a young age, and it's just an honor to represent Easton. My son just graduated from North Carolina High. My daughter would be a freshman there, but I tease them all the time. I said, well, when we saw North Carolina on our football schedule, we considered it a bye week. By halftime, my shoulder pads were off and we were drinking water on the sideline, but it's not like that now. North Carolina's caught up with Easton a little bit, but it's not bad. So I guess with that being said, Matt, I love you, and hopefully one day I can reciprocate this. I think you're a deserving athlete, and you're very big in the community with your coaching and all your accolades and things. It's just I had a lot of opportunities that most kids probably wouldn't have, playing at the next level, and it was just I'm pretty humble about it. It was a very unique experience for me, and with my family, and I was blessed to have the coaching. It's just, I'm proud to represent Easton, and I appreciate everyone coming out, and I thank you. Go EHS.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for their effort in selecting this year's inductee. Thank you, Gary, for your tireless efforts in bringing the Hall of Fame program to Easton High School. A special thank you to the families of the inductees for being here to support them. My name is Jay Kaplan, and I have the privilege of presenting Nicole Foster Lewis to the Hall of Fame at Easton High School. I was the assistant coach for the varsity softball team for 13 years under head coach Dory Hayden. He couldn't be here today. I understand he had an out-of-the-world offer to coach an all-star baseball or softball team. I had the pleasure and honor to coach Nicole under Dory Hayden from from 2002 to 2005. Nicole came to us as an unheralded freshman. She was not considered our #1 pitcher until well into the season. She had incredible control. She could locate that fastball, and with it, it became overpowering. Wherever you put the mitt, she could hit that spot. That would become her biggest asset of a Hall of Fame high school career. Nicole's freshman season was a memorable one, 19-0 in the state championship, allowing only 7 earned runs for the entire season, and only 1 earned run through 5 playoff games. Most girls would have called that a career, but not Nicole. This was just her beginning. Next was the sophomore season. She showed she was human. The record was 11-2. Both losses came at the hands of the eventual state champions, losing the regional championship 1-0. Nicole pitched 8 innings that day. Regulation play stops at 7. International tiebreaker rule states that the last out of the previous inning starts on second base the next inning. They sacrificed a runner to third and scored when the next batter singled. That was only the 4th hit she allowed that game. Her junior year was a gem for both her and her teammates. Nicole's record that year was 18-0. The team went 23-0. She won her 2nd state championship. In the 5 playoff games, she allowed only 2 earned runs. In the championship game against Fort Hill, who was also undefeated, entering the game, she allowed 2 hits with 1 walk and 11 strikeouts while pitching a shutout. Her senior year again, she proved she was human. Her record was 13-3. Nicole took us all the way to the state championship game for a 3rd time. This time we were up against a pitcher by the name of Megan Elton. Megan went on to receive a full Division I scholarship from Arizona State. To this day, she still holds 7 state pitching records. Then, for only the 2nd time in her high school career, she lost a playoff game. Nicole's career records read 61-5, playoff record 15-2, career ERA .82, playoff ERA .44, career strikeouts 547, playoff strikeouts 133, career innings pitched 408, playoff innings 112 1/3. Based on balls 95 for her career, and to her credit, she only had 1 intentional walk. That says something for how she can pitch. There is no way anyone deserves this honor more than Nicole. I am honored that she asked me to present her, and I know Dory would be proud of her too. Let me introduce Nicole Foster Lewis to the Easton High School Hall of Fame.
Inducted into the Easton High School Hall of Fame. I feel especially privileged to not only be considered, but chosen only the 2nd year of what will become a time-honored tradition. I started playing softball when I was 5, but my story really began when I was 8, when I saw a girl windmill pitch for the very first time. I was fascinated. Up to that point, I was uninspired and wanted to quit. But that day, I told my mom if I could learn to pitch like that, then I would keep playing. So my mom talked to the girl's mom, found out who her pitching coach was, and signed me up for pitching lessons on Wednesday nights with Mr. Tony. My dad took me to my first lesson, and to his dismay, the entire night, I rolled the ball to him. I couldn't throw it in the air. When we got home, he told my mom he wasn't going with me anymore until I got better. So for the next 4 years, my mom went with me to my lessons and called me all the time. But by the time I was 12, I was throwing a little bit too hard for her, and it was time for my dad to start catching me. In short, my dad is not my mom. He didn't just catch me, he had expectations for me. I had to hit my spots. I had to be able to throw a fastball low and away, a fastball high and inside, and then come back with a changeup low and away. And before I could end any pitching practice, I had to hit his glove and it could not move. At that time, I didn't understand why I had to do so much, but I stayed the course and did as he said. Finally, I was starting high school and trying out for the JV softball team. Dury always stayed down with us the first days of tryouts, and he would pick select players to send up to the varsity tryout. He had me pitch to maybe 3 batters, and then he went ahead and sent me up to join Jay with the varsity tryout. Luckily for me, both Dury and Jay's expectations were the same as my dad's. I had to hit my spots. I made the varsity team that year as a freshman because I was able to hit my spots. I made the team that day because of my mom's patience and my dad's belief in me. Early on, I was surrounded by people who wanted me to give my best to softball, and when I did, it gave its best back to me. Softball gave me lifelong friends, a couple state championships, and many memories that I wouldn't trade for the world. Some of my favorite memories involve my teammates. They were a huge part of my success in high school. Our team was the best in the state my freshman year. When Jen Doty is playing behind you, you pretty much know how that game's going to go. That year we made it to the state championship game and we won 9-2. It's also hard not to get pumped up for a game when the administration and teachers all pitch in and send you to the state championship in a limo party bus, which Jay still was not allowed to ride with us. He was never allowed to ride the bus with us. This was my junior year. I was more confident. Our team was solid, and not even a rain delay could bring us down once we got to that game. The chemistry and bond we shared was so strong. We won that game 2-0. Aside from the memories, softball also gave me something that I use every day now, which I would not be where I am today, a strong work ethic. Playing competitive softball successfully, I grew up knowing that I need to do well in school, work out, and practice. When I graduated college and transitioned into the working world, I had a chance to prove just what softball had taught me. As I applied for a job as a staff accountant in the organization I currently work for, my boss hired me because of my experience as an athlete. She said she knew what it took to be a student athlete, and she knew I would have the right attitude to work for her. I have been able to prove her right as I worked my way up through the organization. I have never had a boss who has not complimented me on my work ethic. And for that and so much more, I owe so much gratitude to softball. The honor of being part of the Easton High School Hall of Fame represents all my hard training, my moments of doubt, my genuine enthusiasm for the sport, and everything I've accomplished since I walked off the field for the last time. This honor also represents all the pep talks from Dury and Jay and the creative coaching strategies they had to employ to get the best out of me out on the field. I also owe this honor to every teammate I had the privilege of pitching alongside. Without my team, I would have just been a girl throwing a ball on the field. Finally, this honor represents the love and commitment of my parents. I want to thank them for their unwavering support. To Easton High School, thank you for all your support in making this a special day for me.
We're going to make a change here. It's kind of like the manager coming out and changing pitchers. I'm not going to tell you why I'm doing this, but Chad, you want to come up? We're going to switch Andre Gibson and Dave Hill. Well, I will tell you the reason. Dave's a little bit older than Andre, and I'm afraid he's going to nod off by 5:30. But we want to make sure he's awake to get this speech.
Good afternoon. What a joy it is to be here today for this wonderful celebration. My name is Chad Hill, and David Hill is my father. On behalf of my family, it is my privilege to talk about my father today for a few minutes and to introduce him for his induction into the Easton High School Athletic Hall of Fame. We're so proud and excited for Dad to be honored for his remarkable athletic achievements. Graduating in the class of 1960, David Hill was a standout four-sport athlete. I'd like to have $1 for every time one of his contemporaries has mentioned to me what a tremendous athlete Dad was in high school. I'm going to tell you about some of his great high school stats and records in a moment. But let me share a few other thoughts with you first. I don't ever remember a time when my dad wasn't a great athlete, or when he wasn't in great physical shape. Some of you may recall the universal exercise home gyms in the 70s and 80s. My earliest memory is sitting on the floor watching my father pump iron on it, making his way around the bench press, the lat pull down, the weights clanging together with every rep. It's probably worth noting that back then, weight and strength training was not nearly as popular, nor its benefits nearly understood as it is now. Dad was already totally into it. Then again, my father always was ahead of his time. Dad has a large cheering squad here for him today of family and friends. However, his number one all-time fan is not here. Not here in body, but I assure you, he's here in spirit. Of course, I'm referring to my grandfather, my father's father. To us, he was known as Pop. Perhaps you knew him as Doc. Pop was so proud of my father for so many reasons. But Dad's athletic victories seemed to hold to him a particular source of pride. Pop was a great athlete himself, especially on the baseball field. The family bonds formed through baseball can be quite strong, as it was for the Hill family when my dad was growing up in the 40s, a time when Pop played for Easton on the Eastern Shore baseball league. Pop's father was his teammate on that team. I can hear Pop now. Chatty boy, you just wouldn't believe how fast your dad was in high school. No one could catch him. Pop's entire countenance would light up when he would relive and retell his favorite memories. With stories of my father's sports, this would always especially be the case. These days, my father's favorite sport, without question, is golf. Trust me when I tell you, he owns over 1,000 golf books, and they've all been read more than once. Dad's played his best golf as a senior golfer, always working to improve his golf swing. At his peak, a 3 handicap, a former Talbot Country Club and Hog Neck Club champion. He's also accomplished the rare feat of shooting the same score as his age many times over. Dad's always hit the golf ball a very long way, and he's continued to do so into his 70s. While playing in a foursome with Dad and some mutual friends a few years ago, one of the players in the group approached me mid-round and asked, "What's it like to hit a big drive 280 yards down the middle and then have your 75-year-old father step up and blow it right past you?" All right, here we go. David Hill was voted best athlete in the 1960 high school yearbook. While he plays down his soccer skills at the time, at left wing, the records show many goals and assists and a ton of offensive impact. On the basketball team, the local radio commentators called him the Little General. He was known not just for his natural ability to score, but for his fast reflexes on defense, leading to many open court steals and ensuing easy layups. Alongside Norm Wilson and Wayne Lewis, the 1960 team went all the way to the state final. On the baseball field, he was an unstoppable offensive force, hitting at the top of the lineup with speed and power. A dynamite center fielder, he would often change the game with great catches and clutch defensive plays. It's fun looking back at old box scores of these baseball games. Not only did he hit for a high batting average, but I was struck at the amount of doubles and triples that would show up in the game stats. He was, without question, a pitcher's nightmare. However, it was track and field where David Hill shined the most. In his senior season, he broke the school record for total points accumulated by an individual for all meets in a single season. While a strong contributor in all the sprinting events, It was the broad jump and the 100-yard dash where he couldn't be beat. As a 10th grader, Dad set the school broad jump record at 20 feet. He would go on to break his own record many more times, and his senior season jumped 20 feet, 11 inches. This broad jump school record would hold for 14 years and not be broken until 1974. In fact, the man who broke that record is sitting in this room. A great story comes with that, but you'll hear that from Dad. However, it was the 100-yard dash that was his bread and butter. His senior year at all the meets, Dad consistently posted 100-yard dash times around 10 seconds. But on April the 13th, 1960, David Hill set a 100-yard dash state record and a school record that would hold for almost 2 decades. The meet was held at Easton High School's home track, the location we now know as Idlewild Park. I love listening to Dad describe how he remembers the moment, that he timed the start perfectly, and at the finish line, he knew he had done something special. Posting a blistering time of 9.8 seconds flat, this time stood as a state record deep into the decade of the 60s. 9.8 seconds would stand as a school record for 17 years until 1977, when Robert Flood would post a time of 9.75. On the track field in 1960, David Hill did things at the state and school level that simply had not been done before. Then again, my father always was ahead of his time. Please help me in welcoming to the stage from the Easton High School class of 1960, David Hill.
First of all, I want to thank Gary and everybody that has supported this event. It's so special to be inducted and be part of the Easton Hall of Fame. I'm looking out there and I'm looking at Brad Hastings, who is a tremendous golfer. I've been watching Brad play golf since he was 5 years old. I thought he had a perfect swing at 5, 6, 7 years old. It still looks the same today. And it makes me think about me, my golf swing. And I'm 78, and I think I probably change my golf swing pretty much every year. Searching for the secret. I've gone to the best teachers in the world, David Ledbetter, Carl Warren, John Redmond. All 3 of them taught a different technique. And then I come home, and I would be so psyched up because I thought I had the secret. And after a couple of weeks, it would kind of fade away, and I'd go on to my next swing. Last Wednesday, I changed my swing again, and I think maybe I finally have the secret. Brad, I'm now turning the barrel.
That's
and
good.
not using any louder weed.
Good stuff.
But we'll see what happens when I get back. I really love sports. I started early. My dad was in pharmacy school in Philadelphia. I remember getting my first baseball mitt, and finally moved back to Easton. And in Easton, when I was 12 years old, it was Little League. They didn't have the other sports, any organization for soccer or any other types of sports. Ice hockey was far into the future, and lacrosse. So everybody was really engaged with Little League Baseball, and I loved it. I mean, it was all I ever thought about, and I enjoyed absolutely every minute of it. It kind of like launched me into my love of all sports. when I was in the 9th grade. In the 9th grade, I tried out for the basketball thing and the basketball team, and I was fortunate enough to make the varsity. Wayne Lewis and I were the only freshmen on the basketball team. And I remember we were in about the 5th game of the season. We were playing over in Salisbury, and Salisbury was beating us. It was in the second half. They were a couple of points up on us, 2 or 3 points. And Coach Smith, Urban Smith, who was a great coach, said, "Dave, I'm going to put you in the game." And my heart beat a little faster. I said, "Okay." And I got in the game, and I'll never forget it. He put me in his guard, and the 2 offensive guards were kind of telegraphing their passes as they cross-court passed. And I did have some speed, and I would jump forward and steal the ball, dribble down, and get an easy layup. And I did this 4 times in a row. I got fouled once. I remember scoring 9 points. I felt like I was on top of the world. And it was my first real experience in a big game at an early age. So then, it was a couple of days later, we had a home game. And the home game was against St. Michael's. And what was really interesting, back in the late 50s, they turned the lights out in the gym, and the 5 starters, they'd call your name out. And Wayne Patchett, they'd call Wayne's name, and Wayne would run through the door, and they had a spotlight on him, and he would run out to the center court. And then Billy Fluharty, he would run out and be at the center of the court. And then I was shocked. They said David Hill, and I was kind of numb, and he said, "Run out there." So I ran out, and I was in the spotlight, and I thought, wow, man, this is great. I'm starting the game. I think I lasted maybe 3 minutes into the game. My attention deficit disorder kind of came in. And Coach Smith had something called a sagging man-to-man defense. And you got to be an old guy to remember this, but it was pretty effective. He was a really good basketball coach, but again, it was over my head, and I was always out of place, and I pretty much was on the bench for the rest of the season. But there was some great memories. In the 10th grade, which is interesting, Coach Mavity, who was really a mentor to me, he was an amazing, wonderful human being, a great coach. He said, "You know what, I want you to come out, we're practicing for a track meet coming up, and I want you to give some competition in the broad jump." He said, "Johnny Tracks does the broad jump." I'm not making it up. Johnny Tracks is his name. Johnny was he was a pretty good athlete, and he was also a senior, and I was a sophomore, so I was a little intimidated, and I had never done the broad jump. But we did 2 or 3 jumps, and Johnny did not break 19 feet. He jumped like 18.8, and I would jump maybe an inch or 2 shorter than him. And we did this a couple of times. And then finally, Coach Mavity said, "David, you got to get up in the air. You're jumping straight out. Get a little elevation on your broad jump." And I said, "Well, okay." And then he did something really, really strange. He took his hat off, and he put it in the sand, and he said, "Jump on my hat." And I'll never forget it. I remember running hard as I could and leaping higher in the air, and I realized that I was in the air longer than I was ever before. I could tell that something was happening here. And I jumped right on his hat. And then he measured it, and it was 20 feet. And then he told me that that's a school record. And from that point forward, I improved on that a little bit throughout the years. But Coach Mavity, he was really interesting. I mean, he always felt like sports taught us a lot about life. He liked the discipline of sports. And, that when he put his hat down, I think about it over the years. I think in life, when we have a target or we have a goal, that sometimes we can do better than we think we can. That, we don't really know what our ability is. And he kind of taught that, kind of reach beyond your grasp and give it everything that you've got. I remember once I was in the 11th grade and I was captain of some team and using inappropriate language, and his office was right around the corner from the locker room. And he yelled out, "David, come in my office." And he chastised me pretty hard. He said, inappropriate, or he used the word foul language. Leaders don't need to use foul language. And it stuck with me from that point forward. So he's a guy that I really, really admire. Like Chad said, in my senior year, I set the record for the 100-yard dash, and I remember it well. It's not like I ran 9.8 every time, because I didn't. I was more around 10 or a little over 10. So that day that I did, it was one of those days where I had a perfect start, and the conditions were perfect. Not much wind, it was warm, and I knew when I hit the tape that something good, that I ran a good race. And then they told me it was 9.8. But I have not met Robert Flood. I would love to meet him because I know nothing but great things. Robert broke my record 17 years later. I think it was 9.75. So he beat me by a little bit, but he beat me. And I have never had a chance to meet him. But in 1974 was really interesting. I was a dentist, and the front desk assistant came back. I'm working with a patient, and she said, "There's a high school student said he would like to have a couple of minutes of your time." And I said, "Sure." I said, "Let's just bring him back." And it's really a moment in time for me because I never forgot it. This young man comes back, Andre Gibson, and he looked me in the eye. He was not cocky. He was very mature for a high school student. I was really taken by it. Very mature. I said, "Whoever this kid is a winner," because he looked me in the eye and said, "I just want you to know." And I don't know whether his coach told him to do this or he thought it was a good idea himself or what happened. But he said, "I just broke your record." And that was really great. But the hard part was when he told me he didn't just break it like Robert Flood just very barely nipped me on the 100-yard dash. I think he broke it by at least a foot or more. I mean, it was not even close. So he stuck in my head. I think he told me he was going to be going to college in Virginia. Might have been BMI. It was one of the schools in Virginia. And over the years, I had heard he was a great football player and a great guy. And I always thought, I'll catch up to him one of these days. He'll be in Easton, and we'll go to lunch and we can catch up on things. And I would just really like to get to know him. Little did I know that I would never catch up with him until a couple of months ago, because of this program, that Chad found out where he was and had a great phone call with Andre. And it was really a special thing for me. So I love sports. I'm way back there. I feel like the runt of the litter, all these big guys, and coming up here. I'm a little guy from the 50s, but I love sports, so all sports. And I appreciate, Gary, what you have done and everyone that's supported you in this effort. It's so exciting, and it's going to be exciting for me to, get to know some of these athletes again. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
On the seat behind you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Dr. Hill, Andre Gibson is here. Good afternoon. I was called and asked by Andre if I would introduce him into the Easton High School Hall of Fame program. And I told him that I would do it. Well, I'd like to start by saying that we grew up in Easton, Maryland. Andre on Glenwood Avenue, and I on Clay Street. We were always competitive, playing football in my backyard on Clay Street, wanting to be like the great Gail Sears, Paul Horney, or O.J. Simpson, or Tom Maddox. We ended up playing football for our Little League team, and Andre became a great running back, being a standout player on our team. Coach Barris spotted him, and he went on to play at Easton High School. Andre had that great speed, was always able to break tackles, gain lots of yards, and score touchdowns. He was also a great basketball player and track star. He was truly amazing. So as we come to celebrate, I say, congratulations, and to say, here is my friend and yours, Andre Gibson. From the Hawk Brothers.
Good evening, everyone. Gary, I want to thank you for calling me. Dr. Hill, it was a pleasure talking to you. I had no idea who you guys were. I thought it was a spam call. What are they talking about? It's only been 50 years. Gary, thank you so much. It's good to see you again. I've known Gary every single year of my life other than the first 4. And I'd like to introduce my daughter, who's sitting back there with her face covered. She came with me from California to this event. Her name is Meredith. Meredith Gibson. Would you please stand so we can all tell you? And sitting beside her is my cousin, who was a part of this crew, Glenwood Avenue, Clay Street crew. She was the female version of us. Sharon Gibson, would you please stand? I'd like to start and let you guys know that if not for a tragic event that occurred when I was 4 years old, I would not have been an Easton High School warrior. I was actually born in Cambridge, Maryland, and I lived in Bucktown. And in that 4th year of our life, my grandmother's house, which is where I was, it actually burned down. And so we moved to Easton. And that's how I became an Easton High School warrior, because if that didn't happen, I would have been your competitor. It's been really crazy, but you know, life is what it is. So 4 years, that 4th year, we came here, and probably in the 1st grade, met Gary, met his brother Glennie, and David Money, who was the other person of our group, and all we did was play. I mean, literally just play every single day. When we were smaller, we had the field across the street where the 2 schools were, Glenwood Elementary School and Moton High School, which turned into the middle school. It became our nighttime parking lot where we played. Whoever got the ball got tackled. And if anyone wants to know how I got so good at not being tackled, that was it. That was really it. I just couldn't afford to get tackled, because if you did, you either hit cement in the parking lot or you hit the sidewalk and you hit cement on top. So I think that's where it all began. I also want to thank a gentleman by the name of Mr. Barton. He was the director, I think that's what his title was, at the YMCA. And he allowed us kids to go to the YMCA basically anytime we wanted. And we got to play basketball, we got to play ping pong, we got to play tennis, we got to swim, we got to do everything we needed to do, basically to stay out of trouble, but also get into shape and stay in shape, which was absolutely fantastic. And I don't know where he is today, but wherever he is, I want to thank him for allowing us that opportunity to do that. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a baseball player, believe it or not. And the guy I wanted to emulate was the first baseman for the Baltimore Orioles, Lou Powell. Why I wanted to be a first baseman, I have no idea. There was Brooks Robinson, Louis Aparicio, Frank Robinson, Paul Blair, I mean, all these guys. But I wanted to be a first baseman. So I went out for the Little League team, and we were absolutely awful. I was on the fire department team, and I think we won 3 games. We had those games where we were down by so many runs that they stopped the game early and all that kind of stuff was going on. But I still wanted to be a baseball player. And so one game, I came up to bat, and the pitcher was Marty Chance. He threw me 3 curveballs in a row, and I jumped out of the batter box 3 straight times, and it was 3 strikes. That gave up my baseball. So I want to thank Marty, because baseball and track were at the same time of the year. And because I couldn't do baseball, I started track. Hence, I learned how to broad jump. You know, the story behind the broad jump, though, of breaking your record is a little bit more in depth. There was a guy by the name of Chris Gooch who had come over from the Western Shore. And we had just won the district championship, I think, our senior year, my senior year. And he was watching me practice, warm up for me. And he came over to me and he said, Andre, you should move back a little bit. Just a little bit, maybe 10 feet. I said, okay. So I did that. Up to that point, I was jumping in the 20, 21s. The first jump, you remember this, Gary, the first jump in our district championship, 22.8½. All because Chris Gooch said, move back a little bit. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Went on to win the state championship, second place in the triple jump. Gary was on the 880 relay team who won first place on. Chris Gooch won the shot put, right? You, Coach Burris, gave me the shot. But the guy sitting beside you, and you may not remember this, sophomore year, Wally Knox, the legend, Wally Knox, okay, got hurt. Had to come out of the game. I got my shot. Now, we were awful that year. I mean, awful. I think we won 4 games. But because you got hurt, that was the only reason I got a chance to play as a sophomore. I don't want to thank you for that, but I do want to thank you for that. But seriously, thank you. Seriously, it was great following you, because you were something to behold. There's no question about it. Coach Burris, I appreciate you changing the offense for us. What was it called? The veer offense? Yes. It allowed us to open up and do some wonderful things on offense. Okay. I'm sorry. I know I'm jumping all over the place. I had a great story to tell of mine, but it didn't work out. So at this point, I think I just want to thank you all again for allowing me to be here today. Thank you for the induction into the Easton High School Hall of Fame. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Good afternoon. I'm Dale Webb, and I was asked to introduce Richard Milburn, and then one of the persons who was going to be introducing Buck Miller, David Chase, wasn't able to do that. Unfortunately, Richard Milburn, because of health reasons, is not here today. He wanted me to let Gary know that he appreciates all that the committee has done, and he was honored to be inducted for the Athletic Hall of Fame. And I want to congratulate all of the inductees. I mean, it's really been impressive. It was last year, and it is this year. Just hearing about the things that you're doing, and it just seems really unusual that you all look so young. I mean, I see Dr. Hill back there. You might not remember this, but back in the 60s, we attended a seminar together. We went to Baltimore for a science seminar. And I was the only black at that time that was allowed to go. But you probably definitely don't remember this. You were very, very courteous and cordial to me when some of the other ones weren't. And I remember that. And this is the first time that I've seen you in all this time. I mean, and that was back in the 60s. Integration, segregation, all that was going on. And unfortunately, it was important that Garrett and the committee included Moulton in terms of persons inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I'm hoping that it's extended to all Talbot County athletes. Last year, Coach Bryant, Roger Bryant, was recognized. He's 98 years old now. I mean, he's done a lot. He's helped a lot of us, and I'll speak briefly about him. But he wanted me to say that he appreciated that. And unfortunately, he probably won't be here any longer than another year. He's in hospice now. And he told me that he really appreciated that. It was one of the highest honors that he's ever gotten. So again, that just lets you know how important this fair and these inductees are in terms of keeping these type of ceremonies going on. When you're talking about Moulton, I remember we used to have to pass down uniforms. Usually it was about 4 years that whatever uniforms we had, and that was the basketball, because we didn't have a lot of activities or sports. I mean, Buck was on a track team that went to pin relays. I ran cross country when I was there, and we didn't have any way of getting around. I had a Beetle. I think it was a 65 Beetle. If y'all know what that is, little Volkswagen. And we had to go to our track meets in that car, cross country days. So you know how many guys ran on cross country team. So it wasn't bad going, but after the meet, we had rough times getting back. But we had 7 people in that car all the time. So we were a lot smaller then, but again, those were the types of things. And I remember also in Moulton, we had shared tennis shoes. You had to buy your own tennis shoes, and it was either U.S. Kids or it was Converse. And every once in a while, somebody would bring in some type of off-brand, and nobody wanted to wear those, but those were the two. And I remember if you played JV, you wore those, and then you let somebody on varsity wear them for the varsity game. I remember one time I played JV and varsity, and I kept my tennis the whole time. But those were things that we did, and I know when we ran cross country, the uniforms that we had, those shorts, they were the real short shorts then, and they were loose. But when you ran cross country, you had to be careful with that because you didn't have certain things on, and you run in shorts that are loose and all. It got interesting. But Milton didn't have those things, so that's why again we really appreciate this and included Milton in the ceremonies. Richard again wasn't able to be here. The statistics and all, I know that Richard sent a number of articles, et cetera, and we're trying to put all of those things together. But Richard kind of reminds me, if you're looking at the games now, is it the Nuggets Murray? Is that the guard? Well, I mean, he was outstanding. I mean, he did 30 points a game with no problem at all. I mean, and this was when you had playing man to man. He was just outstanding. I mean, when I just started, I guess it was 7th grade, Richard was playing. And when Richard was doing things he did, he was handsome, he was cool, he had a cool car, he had a bunch of girls, I mean, cheerleaders and all like that. And the other thing was he was smart. I mean, he was intelligent. A's and all that stuff. I just wanted to be like him. And most of the young guys coming up felt that way. And being that we didn't have any other sports, that was the only thing that we could do. But again, Richard had a sense of community. When he graduated from Moulton, and I mean, during the time he was there, every year they won the championship, state championship. They won the Eastern Regional, and then they won the Eastern Shore, and then they won the state championship. That was C, I think it was Division C. So, I mean, that's saying something. I mean, they had half of their games where there were over 100 points. They played 4 8-minute quarters, and those guys played the whole time. They were in shape. But those are the types of things that he did. But once he went to Bowie, he played there, and then he was drafted by the Bulls. And he decided that he was going to go ahead into professional basketball, but he was also offered a job in Annapolis as a teacher. And what happened there was they needed, as they called colored Negroes to teach in the school. They were integrated schools. And with that, he said that he was going to make that sacrifice because he knew that that was going to make a difference in the state of Maryland in terms of this type of experience going into doing those types of things. So he played basketball for maybe no more than half a year, and then when the job came, he left basketball. As much as he loved it, he left because he said he could make an impact in terms of making the state a better place educationally, and for all the students. So he did that, and he stayed there for I think about 14 years. After that, then I think he got to maybe director and principal and all that. Then he went to, it was in Anne Arundel County, then he went to Baltimore County. And then he ended up in Baltimore County, and he was assistant superintendent. And he would have stayed there longer, but he was ready to retire. He got his PhD, did that, and then he's now teaching at Morgan as a professor there. Again, he sacrificed his basketball career, but he stayed active. I mean, he played basketball for quite some time. But that was the type of person that he was then, and that's the type of person he is now. I mean, I saw him last week just to go by and see how he was doing and everything. And he just had some trouble medically. But at the same time, he's got a brand new Corvette. So he's still cool, like he was then. And he's still with one of his girlfriends from high school. They're married. And so he's doing well. And again, he wants me to say, Garrett, that he really appreciates it, and he's so sorry that he wasn't able to attend this. Going into knowing Buck, now I didn't play ball with Buck. I mean, I'm just a little younger than he is. I mean, he looks younger than I do, but anyway. When I was playing for Coach Bryan, who was inductee last year, he used to always talk about Buck. He would say, yeah, well, you know, we got to be more like Buck, because Buck had basketball intelligence. And I said, well, what is that? He said, well, he knew how to play both defense and offense, and he knew how to read it. And if I told him to do something, he knew what to do. You all guys have to learn this. And so we always heard that about Buck. And, you know, we didn't particularly like Buck because, you know, that was thrown in our face all the time. And we, you know, Buck must be somebody. And we not anymore. Then I heard some other things about Buck from individuals. I found out that my brother, my old brother, played with Buck. And he mentioned to me that, you know, Buck was really, he had the basketball intelligence. He knew the regulations when the referees didn't know. When the referees made a call, he knew exactly what it was and what it should be. And those were the types of things that Coach Bryan, now Buck played for Coach Wilder, who came before Coach Bryan. And during the time that he played, when Buck started playing basketball, he was on JV. He stayed on JV half of the season. Then they brought him up to varsity. And when they brought him up to varsity, they made him co-captain. So that just tells you something about his character. I mean, to start JV and then to move up to varsity and be made co-captain, and then the next 3 years that he was co-captain, they lost 2 games. Won the championship, the second, third, and fourth year, the state championship. They won the regional championship. Every game, again, they would be scoring over 100 points a game. I mean, they were doing that just like nothing. Buck was the facilitator. He was the point guard. So you all know what that is. I mean, he reminds me from things that, you know, I've heard, and then I played with Buck in the league afterwards. That's when I really got to know him. And I mean, he really impressed me because, I mean, he could sit in the corner, hit a 3 all day long when they didn't count 3s. So we just counted as 2. And that dates you, Buck. But on that same basis, that was the type of person he was. That was the type of player. He was always a team person and always unselfish in terms of doing that. But the other thing that was so important about Buck that impressed us all was he was always like a counselor to us. And he would tell us, you know, you all need to do this, you need to do that. And with that in mind, I asked Buck about his career. And similar to Richard, he said that, you know, I'm sacrificing the basketball because I think it's something else that I need to do. And those things that he needed to do, he used to work with the post office and was doing well there. No, not exactly. Then he went into, and I used to work with the state, so I know what the state is like. But anyway, he went into corrections for the state, working with inmates, counseling them. That was his calling. He has saved hundreds of inmates. And you know, we talk about programs that you need to get these inmates in so when they come back into the community, they're productive citizens and so forth. That's the type of thing that he did. I mean, he still played basketball on the side, but those are the types of things that he did. He was active in the church. And those are things that, you know, a lot of people don't know about. When you talk about playing sports, it does build your character. And that carries on and over into your life. And it did with Buck. I'm so pleased that that he asked me to introduce him and that I got to know him. It's just amazing the things that you find out about people, like the other inductees here, you know, what you've been doing and what you are going to be doing. And it's really important that, Gary, we keep these going because it's important to us as well as those that are going to, you know, come after us. I introduced to you Buck Joseph Miller.
I will bless the Lord at all times, and His mercies shall continually in my mind and in my mouth. The information I got today from Dale brought tears to my eyes. I'm sorry, I'm a people person. And I fell in love with basketball in the first grade. And I'm still in love with it. And along the way, I've had some beautiful experiences. I would like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee, the Eastern High School principal, staff, members of the Hall of Fame that were inducted last year, those that are being inducted this year. It's indeed an honor and privilege to be recognized, because I really wasn't looking for it. When I say I wasn't looking for it, as I said to you earlier, I fell in love with the game, and I gave it all I had. There's so many members, you all. I don't want to bore you, so I'll read what I feel took place through my athletic career. At the age of 6, I had my first encounter with basketball. When the close of the day, my teacher, Mrs. Clash, announced that the next day there was going to be a basketball contest between the faculty of Bolton High and the boys varsity team. My parents were to send a note along with 10 cents so that I could attend the game. That game provided the foundation for my love of this game from then to now. After several years of playing street ball, playground basketball, I made the JV team and moved up to the varsity the second half of the season. That was the 1952-53 season. We played Salisbury High for the Eastern Shore Championship. We lost on a cross-court pass. We had a 1-point lead. The pass was intercepted by Johnny Mapp of Salisbury, and he made the winning basket in the final seconds of the game. In my sophomore season, our team had a successful year, winning the Eastern Shore Championship, and went to Morgan State College and lost the semifinals on Friday night to Banneker High of Catonsville. My junior year, we again won the Eastern Shore title, went to Morgan, won the semifinal game, and we defeated Central High School of Haverty Grace, Maryland in the finals for the state championship. In my senior year, our team went undefeated. We won the Eastern Shore Championship, we won the semifinals, and we won the state championship. That year, our team went undefeated. Long overdue. I stand here today to thank my first coach, Mr. Marion J. Waller, who I never got to speak to once I graduated from high school. But he had instilled so much into me that I felt the gratitude over the years to want to tell him. But sorrowfully, he passed away before I had a chance to do that. So I now announce that publicly, what's on my heart for that man. Coach Brian, I missed his talk last year, but I did get to see him talk. And it hurt me to hear it announced that he is now in hospice. But it's a funny thing, standing here, you're recognizing me, or the committee has recognized me, and you're listening to me. But it takes a village to raise a child. There were people who were very encouraging along the way, community members. I remember one game we had played, I was walking to the locker room, and a grandmother, Mrs. Fanny Brooks, came up to me and she said, "Boy, you really know how to play." She said, "Whenever they had a scramble for the ball, you'd always come out with it." Now, as a ball player, that was the highest compliment you could pay me. Because that's saying that she recognized how hard I was trying. And I know I didn't come out with every ball, but she thought that I did. There were several things that I experienced in playing. That was the spirit of movement. That was the battle cry that we had for the team as well as for the school. That we were all for one, one for all, and all for victory. I will forever remember the spirit of moving high. As a matter of fact, there was a music teacher by the name of Daniel Ryder, and he wrote a song, a fight song, that we used my senior year, and I sung it to myself over the years, and I'd like to sing it to you. Men of ocean honor calls us, no ground will have stalls. On we march, for victory calls us, men of ocean high. Hand in hand together, unity is ever. Victory bells will sound the bells when we go on to conquer. All together and forever strengthened hearts will still the fervor of the Spirit that is our active ocean high. Thank you so much. Coach Joe Haynes, please. My dear friend, Muriel Gates, my wife now. Oh, by the way, come forward, you all, please. I want a picture with you. Joe, please. My wife and I have been married for 60 years. I want you all to be in the picture, please. And I can't take credit for the longevity of the marriage. I have to thank God and my wife. Because, oddly enough, I told you I love basketball. During the time we were courting, she never asked me to make a choice between basketball and her. Because, oddly enough, I'm afraid of the response I would have given her.
I'm here to introduce Gerald Robinson. I mentioned before how, I'm going to just touch on this again. But Gerald comes from a very athletic, nuclear, and extended family, and that may be a big understatement. His two brothers and sisters were all good athletes and were older than Gerald. He thinks his determination to keep up with them was a big factor in his success. In fact, football could be considered the family business on both his father and mother's side. With several members that played or were drafted by the NFL or CFL. His father was drafted by the Lions. His brother Frank had a long career with the CFL. He also had an uncle that was fourth in the 200 meters in the 1972 Olympics in Munich. And that's just what he did in his off time, because his normal job was wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints when Archie Manning was quarterback. And when you talk about families, all the Butlers and Wally and all his family, everybody else here that's got multiple people that have done well. I think Archie had a couple of kids that played quarterback too. You may remember their names. And each of those two guys won Super Bowls. And another uncle played 10 years for the Packers under Vince Lombardi in the 60s, and then 2 years for the Redskins. So Gerald decides he's going to play football because that's what he's supposed to do. But he only made JV in 9th grade. I sent him back, but he didn't make it, and he may wonder why. Well, Gerald kind of was waiting for a growth spurt. I really didn't know him then. But he didn't weigh 100 pounds. 9th grade, he didn't weigh 100 pounds. He told me I could say this. Gerald had a couple of growth spurts and became the starting tight end his junior year and running back in his senior year. He was captain and team MVP his senior year and was also selected first team All-Bayside. So from going from 9th grade, not even playing, to All-Bayside is pretty good. Next up was wrestling. Gerald's brother Craig was a wrestler. I don't think Gerald was too enthused about wrestling, but he wanted to keep up with his brothers and his sister, and they were always competing in some activity, and Craig kind of talked him into it. I think he really wanted to play basketball, but I think between he and Craig, he made the right decision. As a freshman, weighing in at 98 pounds, Gerald compiled an 11-1 record. Of course, he was wrestling against guys that were lighter, too. I mean, it's not like he was wrestling himself today, but still, 11-1 record in competition that matched to his weight. He wrestled at 132 pounds as a sophomore and 155 pounds as a junior and 167 pounds as a senior. In his senior year, his record was 23-2. He also had the most pins on the team that year and was team MVP. That year, he also won the district, the regional matches, and won the states. He was the first wrestler from Easton to ever win a state match in wrestling. Baseball was the next up for Gerald in the spring, obviously, and that was his, I think that was probably his favorite sport. But believe it or not, this is like a Michael Jordan story. He goes out for baseball in 9th grade, doesn't make the team. But he didn't give up. And he made the team the next year and led it in his final 3 years. Gerald had been a pitcher prior to high school and was switched to catcher in 9th grade. But he was a catcher with good speed. Now, in 9th grade, nobody was going to run from him. It's just if he happened to get on, he could maybe steal second. But later on, that speed became important as he became more the guy that he is today. In his senior year, he was named team MVP and made first team All-Bayside. And then Gerald went to UMES, excelled in baseball, and was drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Gerald Robinson as a new member of the Easton High School Hall of Fame.
Not only that, it's the spikes that I have. I'm excited about Easter, yes. Wow, this is an exciting time. First, give honor to God for just being here, just having this opportunity to be inducted into the Eastern Hall of Fame. Thank you, selection board, for selecting me on year 2. This feels good. You know, last year, my brother, obviously, Frank, you know, was inducted in the Hall of Fame. So, obviously, being my idol, you know, it feels good now to be to follow him into the Hall of Fame. Gary, obviously, thank you so much for seeing the vision. Truly appreciate that. Maybe you're sick of talking to me. I talk to you so much through this whole process, but thank you. I really appreciate that. To my coaches, man, you know, where do I start? I will go ahead and start. Start from the beginning. Obviously, my dad, you know, everybody's dad was a coach. If you knew my dad, and I'll get into that, you understand why I played sports. And if you look at all the, like I said, relatives that actually played, I didn't have any other choice. You know what I mean? Like I said, you know, having 2 uncles play in the NFL, and, you know, and then brother playing in the CFL, and then of course, you know, Uncle Dave, he didn't mention, he was just inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in 2013, you know, which was an exciting time to be there, to experience that. Coach, Mr. Butler, you know, Mike, my dad, you know, we called him Mr. Boot. He used to come out there with the work boot. We were 10 years old with the Steelers, you know, out there playing, you know, football, and, you know, he demanded, you know, greatness from us, and that carried on into my adult life. So, you know, thank you, Dad, for that, and I miss him. I really appreciate that. So thank you, Mr. Butler. Appreciate all that. Jim Welch was my baseball coach. Ted Johnson, you know, Mr. Blue. I'll tell a funny story before let me finish telling about it, and the other coaches. Mike, of course, was my coach as well, you know, and then of course Tom Cook was my wrestling coach, and I thank those guys. And before I go on, I'm going to go ahead and tell the story now. I was, I think it was a sophomore year, I was playing football here and got injured, and I told the guys, I said, I'm injured, I have to go home, I can't you know, practice any longer. I was playing baseball around the same time, and you notice I was in the paper quite a bit. So needless to say, I'm standing there in the newspaper, pitching. But of course, I went home saying that I was injured. Those were the days that you got tackled. And you probably don't remember Mr. Blue, but anyway, I put my hands on the desk, looked up in the air, and so yes, I do remember that. So, and I carry that to these days. You know what? Do the right thing. Be have respect, be honored, be honest in the things that you do. So just thank you for that. And last but not least, you know, thank my family for being so supportive. And I want to thank my son for being here. Appreciate it. Thank my girlfriend for being here, supporting me. Truly, truly appreciate that. You know, so much. My parents, I mean, wonderful parents I had. You know, if you guys had an opportunity to know, some of you may not know, you know, Frank Robinson, you know, Reverend Frank Robinson, as I say, Dad went into the ministry. He had an opportunity to play for the Detroit Lions, but he chose the ministry. And then, of course, he worked for the Board of Education. At that point in time, he was the short officer. You don't have those now. So if you were a bad student or a bad kid and not showing up for school, he showed up at your door. You know, he was that guy. So he handled that. You know, he dealt directly with the police officers and things like that. So yeah, we need those now, don't we? That was his. And then Mom, of course, worked at the middle school. She was a secretary at Eastern Middle School for 35 years. So school was important on top of sports. So it wasn't just about, you know, playing sports. You need to be a student athlete. You know, and hearing you talk about that, I can totally relate to that. So anyway, growing up in Easton, wow, what a wonderful thing to do. Grow up here in Easton. You know, at that point in time, you know, Easton was such a wonderful place, especially after growing up and experiencing, you know, other parts of, you know, of the world. just knowing that in Easton, you were just a family, regardless of who you were. It didn't matter. If you played sports, you were family. It was just plain and simple as that. Dad, touched, many people's lives. I hear people talk all the time about him. And to me, it was just Dad. You know what I mean? But so many lives he touched. With his character. It was about having some character. And he taught us that. Learn to have character. Learn to be respectful. To people, regardless of who they are. I grew up in a time when if an adult told you to do something, you didn't. Because the last thing I wanted to do was to your dad, to dad about it. So you were going to answer to that. Again, just growing up here was an awesome thing. It was awesome that when I came to Easton High School, watching my brothers and sisters grow up and play sports here, play 3 sports. I mean, it's what you did. Bottom line, and you made sure you had your grades right and all that. Funny story, actually, just to kind of correct it, I didn't play JV football. I went from 8th grade to 9th grade with my grades being shaky. I didn't play. I didn't play that. I wrestled after that, but I didn't play because obviously Dad said, you know what, you need to get your grades right, son. I don't care about sports, you don't care about all that, but your grades need to be right. Obviously my grades are right, and there I go from there. So, just thinking about my career, and I'm sorry if I'm bouncing around here a little bit. It's funny because I also had the program for 1971. So when I first started playing minor league baseball, my mother kept everything. Such a sweetheart. She kept everything for us. And I have actually the last program when I played my senior league and senior year in high school football. She has all those things too as well. On top of having all these programs and newspaper clippings and stuff like that, sitting back there on the table. It was just a sweet thing to be able to pull those things out and take a look at it, look at all the old names and the people that you grew up with and stuff like that, and touched their lives. Good Facebook. Facebook is a good thing because I actually went on Facebook and found quite a few of them too, and be able to share things with them and talk about the good old days and stuff with those guys. So that was a good thing. So. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it was just a family environment, to grow up here in Easton and just develop into a good human being. Have a great life, good career, and I did have the opportunity, as you mentioned, I got drafted by the Dodgers in 1983. Unfortunately, I chose to get an agent. The Dodgers said, you know what? To have an agent, and kind of got blackballed and never pursued it from there. So it was like, wow. Moved out to Nebraska. How to get to Nebraska? Well, you know what? My dad was in. Went out to Nebraska, ended up working for a group home called Boys Town. Father Flanders in Boys Home, and actually started counseling kids. Sounds like Frank to me. So I actually, started doing that. I don't know how I got into it, but it happened. From there, it's another funny story is that I played, no one in Nebraska obviously would know this little kid from Easton. So started playing softball in that area. Started playing a little bit of softball and stuff like that. And played on a team, and we played the police department. And needless to say, I was okay. I think I had 4 home runs. I think some center field I threw out like 2 or 3 people going home and stuff like that. And the chief of police is like, well, okay, who in the world are you? So needless to say, next thing you know, I'm in the police academy. He recruited me. That was my interview. I'm sitting in the police academy, and I'm a police officer for the next 3 years. Decided, then unfortunately, my dad passing away in 1990, so I came back here in 91. Kind of start life from there. So I look at it and say, you know what? It wasn't meant to be. As far as playing professional baseball. When I was out there, the other story was the Kansas City Royals that came out, had a tryout. Guess what? Who was the top guy out there? It was me. But guess what happened? They said you need to be anywhere from the age of 17 to 22. I was 23. I told me a little story. I was 22. Look at my driver's license. I was 23. So I don't know why that mattered then, but it mattered to me, so never had that opportunity again. So I said, you know what, it wasn't meant to be. So, okay, so what, I missed that opportunity to, be a professional baseball player, but you know what? I'm inducted into the Eastern Hall of Fame.
Good evening. I'm so honored to be here amongst all this greatness. I'm a St. Michael Saint, and I'm here in Easton High School's house. My name's Debbie McQuaid. I'm an educator, recently retired. I was fortunate enough to watch many of you go through your high school careers. I'm going to have to give a shout out to Andre Gibson. He probably doesn't remember me, but I remember your greatness because you played against my brother Mike, and he played for St. Michael's basketball. I remember you fondly. I'm honored to introduce your next Hall of Famer, Ms. Lee Wilson. Gifted and talented in many ways. Lee was a three-sport athlete, a member of the class of 1995. After a successful high school career, she headed off to the University of Maryland to continue her studies and her fourth sport, which was music, education. I would always look for her on TV because she was part of the Terps pep band. She'd be in the back during the basketball games, and I'd always be looking to see she'd show up on the camera. She's also part of the Terps marching band, the Symphonic Wind Ensemble. So I call that her fourth sport. At Easton High, she excelled as that three-sport athlete, participating in field hockey, basketball, and softball. Her talents helped her teams earn a few regional, Bayside, and state titles, with Lee earning all conference accolades in each sport almost every year, and I think there was at least one player of the year, field hockey, softball, one of those. I don't have a lot of the stats like you guys have, but I have not had the pleasure of coaching her because I coached against her. St. Michael's field hockey against Easton. I did not win. I could not get past her. She was on the defense and never had an answer for her. She played for Marty Mulbreda, and she was a phenomenal athlete. She was a scholar, an athlete, a talented musician, always involved in her school and community. She embraced life as a student athlete, got the most out of her high school experience. Add marching band, theater, honor societies, and more to her athletic schedule. She was one busy young person. I imagine the only time her parents actually saw her is when they went to her athletic events. How would I describe Lee? She was the ultimate student athlete, strong academically, a master of time management, modest, humble, kind, dependable, yet fierce on the field, the court, and the softball diamond. She's a young person of integrity and committed to be the best every day. She's definitely Hall of Fame, Lee Wilson.
Thank you, Debbie, for that wonderful introduction. Though I never actually played for you, you always treated me as if I were one of your own players. Congratulations to my fellow inductees. I'd like to thank Mr. Wright and all those who organized this event. Thank you to those who nominated me. It's quite an honor to be part of the second class of the Hall of Fame. Thinking about all the selections over the years, all the possible selections, it's really humbling. I'd like to thank my parents, Ed and Liz, for being there this evening, for your time, love, support, encouragement, and sacrifice that was extended to me while growing up and that continues to this day. The countless hours of practices, games, tournaments, and financial support to help me along the way is a sacrifice that I didn't fully appreciate until I was grown and had my own responsibilities. My parents, along with each of my coaches, teachers, teammates, and friends, helped develop me as an athlete, student, and individual. The importance of working as a team is a lesson that can come from many situations and one that is utilized throughout life. Each team that I was a part of taught me to work with others to reach a common goal. I learned to depend on and to trust individuals in order to succeed. Individually, I learned the importance of hard work, practice, and dedication in order to improve and to achieve my best. Additionally, I developed a sense of self-worth. Even though I'm not involved in sports at this point of my life, all of those lessons aided me in school and they continue to help me in my work and my daily life. During my time at EHS, I very much enjoyed the sports that I participated in, but I think my favorite team was our basketball team. Not just because we won 2 state championships, but because we truly came together as a unit. Few of us had grown up playing together in youth leagues as we had in field hockey or softball. Our team was unique. We came from different backgrounds. We even had 2 foreign exchange students. But we came together as one, both on and off the court, and we had a lot of fun in doing so. Another reason I enjoyed basketball so much was that it was a newer sport for me. Prior to high school, I'd only played in our driveway with Brad and the neighborhood boys. And either that or in gym class. Maybe there was less pressure on me to perform. Maybe I saw it as a bigger challenge. Either way, I had fun, ended up being successful, made new friends, and learned some things along the way. I have many fond memories of my days on the hockey field, basketball court, and softball diamond. I can remember being able to perfectly place a penalty stroke, winning regional and state championships in basketball, and I definitely remember the first time I finally sent that softball over the fence onto Route 50. It was a goal I had made to myself my freshman year, and it came to fruition my senior year. Again, I'd like to thank everyone here tonight, those who helped make this happen, all of the coaches for their time and commitment that make high school sports possible. Thank you.
I assume all the inductees got their tray, right, on the table, you found it? Is that right? Everybody got one? No? Lunch? Okay, there you go. That, unless somebody else has anything to say, that kind of wraps up this portion of the program tonight. This would be a good time if you want to hang around, take some pictures up here with our official high school backdrop. Or if you want to hang around a little while, I don't even know what time it is. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, okay. Yeah, all the time, how about that? So, but yeah, all right, that's good. Why don't all the inductees come up and get one group picture, and then we can do some